Monday, June 9th, 2025, and welcome to our first episode of The Blueprint. I'm Hannah Moldavan, Deputy Communications Director for the Democrats, and your host today. You might be asking, what is the Blueprint? Donald Trump is counting on us to get distracted, but we're not falling for it. Every morning, we'll cut through the noise and give you the real story. What's happening today that actually matters, why it's a big deal, and how you can fight back and help Democrats win. Whether you're in the trenches of Democratic politics or just want the truth, this is your go-to spot. So let's get to work. First, if there's one thing you're paying attention to today, it's this. The GOP's Billionaire First budget bill is, again, making its way through the Senate this week. Here's your reminder about the numbers that matter from the bill. 16 million, the number of people who could get kicked off of their Medicaid or ACA-provided health insurance. 3 trillion, the dollar amount that would be added to the deficit. 42 million, the number of families and children who rely on SNAP to put food on the table. Trump and the GOP keep lying about their Billionaire First bill, but Democrats are keeping our eye on the ball. Pressure from Democrats, coupled with energy on the ground from angry constituents who don't want essential programs ripped away, does have an effect on Senator support of this disaster of a bill. Let's keep speaking the truth and turning up the pressure. And now for a look at what happened over the weekend. On Saturday, Gina Ortiz-Jones won the San Antonio mayoral election, beating back massive amounts of right-wing dark money. Texas voters made their voices loud and clear. They want strong Democratic leaders who will fight for them, protect their rights, and build opportunities within their communities. Momentum is on our side, and it continues to build as Democrats have won or overperformed in 25 key elections this year already, showing how voters are pushing back against Trump's reckless agenda and supporting Democratic values up and down the ballot. Congratulations, Mayor-elect Ortiz-Jones, on a historic win. And over the weekend, Trump sent 2,000 National Guard troops to California in response to protests against his administration's immigration actions, invoking a rare federal power last used in 1965 to bypass gubernatorial authority in the state. As this extraordinary move was taken, Trump advisor Stephen Miller stated, "We will take back America." But Governor Newsom called out Trump's lies, sharing on X that it was the Los Angeles Police Department who were managing the situation before Trump went against state and local authorities' will by deploying National Guard troops and increasing tensions. Democratic governors also provided a united front in response to Trump's move to militarize California without consulting or working with Governor Newsom. In the statement released yesterday, the governors called out Trump's alarming abuse of power and condemned violence and intimidation of any form. But of course, Trump continues to exacerbate the situation, posting late last night on Truth Social to bring in the troops after Defense Secretary Hegseth announced 500 U.S. Marines were on standby. Let's be clear, Donald Trump doesn't care about law and order. If he did, he wouldn't have issued blanket pardons for rioters who attacked police officers on January 6th. Donald Trump is trying to stoke fear and divide us, and we won't let him. And after nearly 3 months of Trump refusing to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia home, the Trump administration has finally relented to the demands of the courts and Democrats, bringing Garcia back to the United States to face criminal charges. Let's be clear about what happened here. After the Supreme Court ordered Garcia's return, Trump defied the rule of law. He even went so far as to tell the president of El Salvador from the Oval Office that he wanted to build more prisons in El Salvador to detain American citizens, a proposal that would violate the Eighth Amendment and represents a chilling assault on our constitutional rights. Then, following Trump's inaction to return Garcia, it was Democratic elected officials, like Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland and others, who demanded his return and went to El Salvador in person, using oversight power to investigate and push back against the administration's lawlessness. Moving to the economy today, new CBS polling shows how fed up Americans are with Trump's dangerous economic agenda. As costs rise and Trump continues to rig the system for the ultra-wealthy and then steer our economy off a cliff, the new poll shows how little confidence the American people have in Trump when it comes to their wallets. More than half of Americans disapprove of Trump's economic agenda, while 3/4 think his erratic trade policies will immediately increase prices. And when it comes to his Billionaire First bill, more people believe it will help wealthy Americans more than they believe it will help or hurt any other group. And analysts at Bloomberg forecast that inflation rose last month as companies increasingly began passing along higher costs from tariffs onto consumers. They note that consumers have been especially hard hit by higher prices from tariffs when purchasing furniture, clothes, and auto parts. A special reminder that Donald Trump's campaign promise was to lower costs on day one. Let's hear it from Trump himself.
So when I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one. We will.
And 23 health insurers across several states have submitted plans to raise premiums for next year, citing Republicans' failure to extend enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies in their budget bill and rising healthcare costs. In addition to the 16 million Americans expected to lose their healthcare under Trump and Republicans' bill, another 22 million who get their insurance through the Affordable Care Act marketplaces will see a huge spike in their premiums. And today, in our segment called the MAGA Breakdown, later today, Trump will hold a roundtable at the White House related to Ted Cruz's Invest America proposal for automatic newborn savings accounts. That's the one that MAGA Republicans worked into the reconciliation bill and renamed Trump accounts. We'll be watching and monitoring the roundtable for lies and misinformation. And one of Trump's top advisors yesterday confirmed that the administration was open to Medicare cuts, and of course will consider similar proposals to what they've done to Medicaid in this budget bill. Let's play the clip.
But you were taking Medicare off the table. The White House says don't do it.
No, but I've seen a massive amount of waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, and I've not been briefed on Medicare waste, fraud, and abuse.
Okay.
But if they find something, then of course we would look at it.
Remember, despite the constant barrage of misinformation from Trump and Republicans, here's the truth about their budget bill. Republicans' proposed Medicaid cuts in the budget will rip healthcare from those in need. This latest submission that you just watched from the Trump White House, that they will continue to relentlessly come after Americans' healthcare. This time for seniors who've paid into Medicare their entire lives is terrifying, but not surprising. Democrats are pushing back against these lies on the Hill and around the country. We're holding town halls in Republican districts so GOP constituents can be heard and to make sure Republicans don't succeed in passing this bill. And you can do something too. Text call to 43367 to get your senator's phone number and a script to tell them you don't support the GOP's proposed Medicaid cuts or their new mission to attack Medicare. And over the weekend, Speaker Mike Johnson incredulously claims that he didn't make the billionaire first bill working its way through Congress to cater to the wealthy, and that in fact this legislation will help working Americans. Let's see exactly what he said.
This is a very exciting piece of legislation. I'm going to say this. Look, I didn't go out to craft a piece of legislation to please the richest man in the world. What we're trying to do is help hardworking Americans who are trying to provide for their families and make ends meet. Those are the people that are going to be excited about what this legislation produces. This is going to be Jeff.
But we at The Blueprint and economic experts know the truth. Let's first hear this economic analysis.
Put some numbers on this. If you're in the top 20% of Americans, you're going to get roughly a 3.7% increase in your after-tax income, really all from these tax cuts. But if you go all the way to the bottom and everything in between essentially leads you to the bottom, if you're in the bottom 20%, you actually lose $800. Why do you lose $800? You get a very small tax cut, and you get a very large cut in Medicaid and these other benefits that we were just talking about that affects the 20% disproportionately. So this is a highly regressive bill that essentially favors the wealthy, doesn't do much for the middle class, and hurts the poor.
That's right. Republicans' billionaire first budget will rig the system to transfer the wealth from the working class to America's richest. And Democrats won't let them or the American people forget it. And it seems like every day we learn about new instances of chaos in the Trump administration between senior officials. Following Elon and Trump's friendship breakup last week, it was reported that earlier this year, Musk and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent got into an all-out physical altercation in the West Wing. Meanwhile, Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer have reportedly openly disagreed and debated one another in the middle of trade negotiations with Japanese counterparts, undermining any narrative that there is a coherent strategy in place at all. Now, today, those three will be in London for high-stakes negotiations with Chinese counterparts, where a lack of a united front could very well play right into Beijing's hands. While we can laugh at the Veep-like image of two rich guys giving each other black eyes in the halls of the West Wing over petty administration drama, Democrats won't let you forget that Trump's erratic trade policies continue to send the economy into a tailspin. And these are the best economic minds Trump can muster to seal the deal. And in a new magazine piece, Rolling Stone outlined the extremes that Trump administration officials are going to placate their boss. including spending tens of millions of taxpayer dollars on things like commercials of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem thanking Trump for his immigration policies and the upcoming military parade on Trump's birthday. What's more, the tens of millions in taxpayer dollars being used to craft and place Noem's ads are going to GOP-led firms that previously worked for the Trump campaign. So while the administration is spending taxpayer dollars to praise Trump, how does cutting waste, fraud, and abuse mean spending money on commercials aimed at one audience while trying to cut programs like Medicaid and SNAP in this bill? And it was reported that Tulsi Gabbard placed one of her own top advisors in the Office of Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, a role that is supposed to serve as an independent watchdog. However, in an unusual move, the Inspector General and former Gabbard advisor, whose, again, job is supposed to be to protect citizens from mismanagement and misconduct in the administration, still reports to Gabbard directly. This comes amid Trump's politicization of the intelligence community and firing of senior veteran officials with years of institutional knowledge. We'll continue to monitor these developments closely and hold the administration accountable for actions that undermine national security and the integrity of our democratic institutions. And today, for Democrats on offense, let's recap what happened on Friday. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries held a press conference to underscore a major takeaway from the past week. Trump and Republicans' budget bill will rip away healthcare from nearly 16 million Americans, all while ballooning the deficit. Let's take a listen.
All of this is being done so that Republicans can provide massive tax breaks to their billionaire donors, and then they want to stick the American people with the bill.
Jeffries is spot on here. Let's remember, this bill only passed the House by one vote. And if the Republican senators want to tinker with this bill at all, it has to go back to the House again for passage. Thanks to Leader Jeffries' leadership, no House Democrat voted for this bill the first time. That means House Republicans will have to try again to corral their caucus in the same direction, which we know will be a challenge. And House Democrats will make sure they feel the pressure. Moving from Capitol Hill to a battleground U.S. House district in Lansing, Michigan, where on Friday, Senator Alyssa Slotkin and Congresswoman Kristen McDonald-Rivet held a town hall when Representative Tom Barrett wouldn't. Hundreds turned out to hold Republican lawmakers like Barrett accountable for voting to cut health care to fund a tax handout for billionaires in the budget bill that's in the Senate right now, and that Congressman Barrett voted for. This was the 129th town hall Democrats have hosted in our People's Town Hall series across 48 states. If Republicans won't hear their constituents' concerns, Democrats will. And on Friday, the Supreme Court rejected the Republican Party's challenge to Pennsylvania voters' right to cast provisional ballots on Election Day. The Pennsylvania Democratic Party, with support from the DNC, filed an opposition brief underscoring that simple errors on mail-in ballots shouldn't impede Pennsylvanians from exercising their rights at the ballot box. And over the weekend, DNC Chair Ken Martin traveled to New Jersey ahead of tomorrow's gubernatorial primary election to encourage voters to participate at the polls. We're looking to build Democratic momentum up and down the ballot for the elections to come, and that means exciting voters in and out of presidential years. And in what you can do today, as I just mentioned, tomorrow's New Jersey's gubernatorial primary election. If you're registered to vote in New Jersey, you can find your polling location by visiting the New Jersey government page. And now that Trump's billionaire first budget has passed the House, Senate Republicans are continuing discussions to lay the groundwork for devastating cuts to healthcare and food assistance. Republicans have made it clear they don't care if their own constituents live or die as long as the richest get richer. If your state has a Republican senator, give them a call and ask them to vote no. Text call to 43367 to get their phone number and a script. And Trump and the GOP are hoping Americans won't notice the impact of their deeply unpopular policies, but we know better. Whether it's a chat in the office or a conversation over coffee, take a few minutes, talk to a friend or neighbor about how the Republican budget bill would affect people in your community. The truth travels faster by word of mouth. Here are your top points. 1, this bill will threaten access to healthcare. From Medicaid to now Medicare and the ACA, deep cuts to all of these programs will kick millions off their insurance and force them to pay exorbitant out-of-pocket premiums. 2, this bill will jeopardize SNAP, ripping away millions of families' ability to put food on the table. And this bill would make Trump's tax scam permanent, permanently rigging the system so the ultra-rich can cheat on their taxes while working families pay more. Thank you so much for joining us today for our very first episode of The Blueprint. Please join us weekdays, every day during the week, at 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube. Until next time.